How to start violin vibrato. If we haven't met, hi, I'm Megan. I'm a violinist and teacher. I've been playing the violin for over 20 years. I have my bachelor's and master's degrees in violin performance, and I'm Suzuki trained. If you're enjoying my videos, please take a quick second to make sure you are subscribed. It's easy and it's free, and I can't tell you how much it means to me. And if you're interested in working with me, you can check the description for a private lesson application, as well as a link for my online self-paced learning program, Learn Violin Online. Enrollment will be opening up in early 2026. So if you're looking for a structured yet flexible approach that offers unlimited feedback for me, definitely check it out. So in this video, I'm going to be giving some precursors to violin vibrato and things that you need to know and be able to do before you start. This is not an exclusive vibrato tutorial. I'm not going to go in depth on how to actually do vibrato, but I will leave several videos that I've already done on this topic linked below. So before even starting violin vibrato, I think there's several things that you need to have in check. Now, please keep in mind, nothing is ever going to be perfect. We are always going to be working to improve virtually every aspect of our playing, but these are things you should have a good handle on before starting vibrato. I know vibrato is exciting and something that a lot of students are very eager to learn, but I always like to say vibrato is like the icing on the cake. You wouldn't just eat a big ball of icing. I don't know, maybe you would, but I wouldn't. You want to have a beautiful, fluffy, moist cake intact, meaning you want to have the structure, the foundation, before adding on the decoration, before adding on that sweet, sweet vibrato. So the first thing is obviously your posture. So you need to have a bowl hold that is correct and also relaxed. You need to be able to hold the violin for a decent amount of time. I would say maybe like 30, 45 minutes without any stress or pressure on your neck or your shoulders. And you need to maintain a good left hand frame. If you're uncertain if you are holding the violin bow or the left hand correctly, then I will leave a video link that you can check out to double check and make sure you're doing everything correctly, because nothing else is going to work if you are not set up correctly. Once your posture is in check, you need to make sure that you are able to bow straight and create a pleasing tone. So when you're bowing, your bow needs to be parallel to the bridge, and your tone should not be scratchy or overly weak. I also call that fuzzy sound. You also need to have a decent sense of intonation. So again, nothing is ever perfect, right? We're always refining intonation. Even me now, 25 years into my violin journey, I am still working on intonation. But you need to be able to hear when you're in tune versus out of tune, and you need to play in tune the majority of the time. I also personally advocating for learning how to shift before learning vibrato, and there's a very simple reason for this. When you shift, you expand the number of notes that you can play on the instrument, which therefore expands your repertoire, right? It expands the amount of pieces that you can play because you can play more notes. Vibrato, it makes the pieces that you can already play beautiful, but it doesn't necessarily expand your repertoire. Now, you're probably wondering how long this is all going to take, and honestly, I really can't tell you. How long this takes depends on a number of factors. It depends on your prior experience. Did you play violin as a kid and you're picking it up again back now, or did you play a different instrument as a kid? It also depends on your age. Unfortunately, yeah, a 20-year-old is going to be able to learn more quickly than a 70-year-old. And of course, it depends on how much you practice and how effective your practice is. But as a general rule of thumb, so I typically start teaching vibrato at the end of Suzuki Book 2, usually when students have been playing anywhere between 1 to 2 years. Another very important thing to take stock of is the amount of tension that you hold in your body when you're playing, because unfortunately, vibrato just won't work if you're tense. Then, before you start any vibrato exercises, you need to understand the 3 core pillars of vibrato. So the first core pillar is that there are 2 types of vibrato, wrist vibrato and arm vibrato. Now, the type that you do does not matter. Sure, there are some subtle differences between arm vibrato and wrist vibrato, but for now, leave that to the pros and just work on the one that feels best for you. I have all my students try both, and then again, we focus on the one that feels best for them. I firmly believe that one or the other will come more easily to you because I had that experience myself when I was starting to learn vibrato. My teacher was teaching me wrist vibrato, and for the life of me, I could not do it. It took me several years, but we finally figured out I have a more natural arm vibrato. And once I started doing arm vibrato, everything kind of clicked. So pick the type that comes easiest to you. You do not need to learn both, especially at first. So I started learning vibrato, I think when I was like in 3rd grade or something. And like I said, I was doing mostly arm vibrato, but for me, wrist vibrato just clicked one day when I was like in college, so a lot of years later. But I was already in college, right? I had already auditioned and gotten into a music school just doing one type of vibrato. So no, you don't need to learn both, especially at the beginning. The second pillar is that vibrato is a backwards motion. So this means when you're doing vibrato, you start on the pitch and you move your hand backwards. The reason for this is that our ear picks up the highest frequency. So our ear picks up the highest pitch. So if you are going over your desired pitch, you are going to sound sharp. And the third pillar is that when we're using vibrato, the points of contact in our hand change from 3 to 2. So up until this point, you have been touching the violin in 3 spots: your thumb, the inside of your first finger, and then whatever finger you are touching with. Even if you're using multiple fingers, that just counts as 1 point of contact. However, when you're using vibrato, you're no longer going to touch the instrument there. You're no longer going to touch the instrument on the inside of your first finger. I like to call this creating a little bit of airspace that will free up your hands so that you can do vibrato. Now I'm going to be giving you a couple preparatory exercises for vibrato. And again, please remember this is not a vibrato tutorial. If you want a more in-depth vibrato tutorial, check out the links below. So a super easy exercise that I really like, because as you can see, I put my violin down. I don't have my violin anymore. You don't need your violin to do it. Is something like this, where you put your finger on your thumb and then you poke that first knuckle. When you're doing vibrato, this first knuckle has to be very soft and flexible. So doing this will help loosen it up. The next exercise is practicing the vibrato motion, again, without the instrument. So I'll give you examples for both wrist and arm. So for the wrist, the motion is essentially this. It's like you're knocking on a door, like, hello, I'm here, ready for the party. So if you practice just this movement, and what I want you to notice is that my wrist is not moving back and forth. My wrist acts as a hinge for the rest of my hand to go backwards. And this is the exercise for arm vibrato. So again, you're just going up and down, opening and closing your wrist. Opening and closing your elbow. I'm not forcing my wrist to move. It's just doing so naturally. Maybe another knock, just like a more forceful knock, I guess. Then you can go to doing the same exercises on the instrument. So this is the one for wrist. And as you can see, my thumb is mobile. So my thumb is not staying in place. It is moving. And then the same thing for arm. Just open and close the elbow. And again, you can see my thumb is moving. This is the same motion as shifting, by the way. And then the final exercise is doing the same thing, but with your thumb staying in place. So that is for wrist, and that's for arm. So those are several exercises you can do to help you get used to the vibrato motion without actually having to do vibrato. So now you have a clear idea on what you need to learn before starting vibrato. You have a timeline of how long it's going to take you to learn it. You have some insight into the basic principles of vibrato, and you have several exercises to practice. Now, as far as how long does it take to actually learn vibrato, I would say the movement takes a few months, but perfecting it, like most things, can take years. So please do not get discouraged if you feel like you've been doing vibrato for years and it just hasn't opened up yet. I promise you'll get there. If you have any questions about starting violin vibrato, leave them below, and thank you for watching.